We are today at the end of our virtual exchanges on hydrogen technologies with our last webinar of a series of 6 webinars we had. So this is the end of a short travel we had to the discovery of the regional ecosystem and the regional value chain of Piedmont region on hydrogen technologies. Not only the regional ecosystem, but the players and the network of actors that are working on hydrogen technologies for the development of these technologies, together also with other partners from other regions and other countries outside Italy. A very few technical specifications for today. We will have 2 different sessions. The first one in the first one we have presentations of today's speakers. In the second part of the morning, we will have a possibility to have B2B with the speakers, so a B2B session. We will give more details after. All participants have the possibility to make questions through the question and answer function on the bottom of the screen. So you can write directly there. And we will have the possibility to answer this question after the end of the presentation. So I ask the speakers to wait till the end of the first part of the morning, and then we can collect all the questions and give all the answers at the end. All the participants after this webinar will receive information about the presentations, the materials. The recordings of the former webinars are already available on our YouTube channel. And also for all the participants which took part in all the webinars, we will send certificates of attendance and also a short questionnaire for the evaluation of these virtual exchanges and the cluster exchange program. So coming to our webinar of today. This webinar is part of Smart Energy Project. Smart Energy Project is a COSME project funded by H2SMARTENERGY agency. The 3 main objectives of these exchanges are, first of all, to provide participants with training on the state of art of important energy technologies. In particular, we organize these virtual exchanges on hydrogen technologies, but in the project we also identified other relevant topics. One is local energy communities, which is co-organized by Tweet Cluster, which also is today part of the speakers as partner in the Smart Energy Project. And another one is on Smart Grid, which is co-organized by Tenerrdis cluster, which is also today part of the speakers. The second main objective is to give the possibility to discover through different hosting partners, different partners in Smart Energy Project, which are the relevant innovation networks and ecosystem dealing with these energy topics. And finally, give the possibility, give support to the participants to match with local innovation partners looking for opportunities. So this is specifically the aim we have both with the first part of the morning, but especially in the second part of the morning. As I said, we are at the last step of this travel. We talked in our first webinars about which is the state of art of the value chain in our region. Then we moved to talk about research and testing facilities for organizations, enterprises interested to make research and innovation. We had 2 webinars presenting some of the key players of hydrogen technologies that introduce themselves and their projects. And then we are moving today on a different topic, which is the one related to possibilities and tools and opportunities for cooperation, in particular industrialization and market access of hydrogen technologies. as I said, we will have in the second part a session dedicated to B2B. So we will leave this link open after the end of the webinar. We will also write this in the chat so that for the participants who still not did it, they can directly register on the platform, create their account, log in, and ask meetings, schedule meetings with the speakers. That's all from my side. As I said, we look today a little bit more on what's happening also outside our region, with a focus on some opportunities to cooperate and get support for industrialization and market access of innovation in the sector of hydrogen technologies, both at the EU level, but also we will have some presentations from regions with which our cluster, the Tenerrdis cluster, historically have fruitful relationships, and also other regional and national organizations that are part of our network of our cluster. So starting with the first presentation, the first presentation is from Jakob Reuter. Good morning.
Morning.
The European Institute of Innovation and Technology, EIT, is an EU body created by the European Union in 2008, I think, to strengthen in particular the capacity of innovation in European Union. EIT, Energy in particular, is the sector of the institute which is in charge of accelerating sustainable energy innovation through, we will see, training activities, business creation, funding, applied research and innovation projects. We already had the possibility in some of the first webinars to understand that the support of hydrogen technologies to the decarbonization targets of European Union is strictly linked to availability of green and clean hydrogen. Regarding this challenge, EIT launched recently in November, if I well remember, November last year, a specific initiative dealing with this topic with hydrogen, which is the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center, whose aim is to support the overcoming of the barriers to the production and use of green hydrogen. So I leave the floor to Mr. Jakob Reuter for his presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Luca. You already did my entire presentation, so it's easy for me now. My name is Jakob Reuter. I had the Benelux operations for EIT Energy for the out of Amsterdam and Eindhoven. And I'm glad that I'm given the opportunity to explain to you what our goal is with the Acceleration Center, how it was formed, our first flagship project, Green Steel in Sweden, and how we look for cooperation across the European Union. So I don't know if everybody or in this call is familiar with the EIT Energy, but Luca already gave a short presentation or a short introduction. Actually, we were started 11 years ago, Luca, as a result of a public tender by the European Commission that asked for consortia to come up with a solution to speed up the innovation for the energy transition. So in 2000 already it was seen, or in 2010, excuse me, it was already seen that we need still a lot of development to be able to decarbonize and to reach the goals of the European Union as far as decarbonization is concerned. The consortium of which I'm now part of won that tender. Was a consortium of 24 institutions and companies, universities, research institutes, and industry that joined forces. And with such a combination, you have the so-called triple helix. That is the ideal, let's say, way to foster innovation. So the goal is ultimately to reduce CO2 emission, but it was also formed to improve the European competitiveness, especially towards Asia, to remove the barriers between the member states to make it easier to cooperate. And another important goal is that we create jobs. So we got the offices that you can see on the right-hand corner with activities in all the countries. We also recently opened up an office in Boston. So it's easier for the European assets that we have to gain access to the United States and vice versa. And what's also important that we have quite a strong presence in Brussels. So we have easier access to politicians, finance and other relevant instruments. So what do we do? Well, basically the core activities that we do is that we reduce risk and we increase the time to market for all those innovations. And how do we do that? We do that by leveraging our ecosystem, and we focus on 4 activities. Number 1 is human capital with the master programs of our associated universities, where we train entrepreneurs. Number 2, we are an incubator. So we invest in early stage startups and scale-ups. We invest in innovation projects, and I have a few examples of those later on for the development of products. And the 4th one is we set up industrial value chains like the European Battery Alliance, which is a value chain around batteries. This initiative that I'm heading, the European Green Hydrogen Acceleration Center. And we also recently launched the European Solar Initiative that is meant to reshore the manufacturing of solar panels into Europe. I always like to speak more, not so much what we do, but what we have achieved. We are fairly unknown, but we are actually the largest incubator in the world in the field of energy with more than 380 startups. Already 1,200 students have graduated from our universities. We've invested around almost 600 million, raised another 2.5 billion, invested those in our assets. And we're very particularly proud of this one, that in terms of unique deals, we're in the top 3 of worldwide players of investors in renewable energy tech, right after Shell and before many other large corporates. So about the value chains. So the first one we did was the European Battery Alliance that was started 3 to 4 years ago, with the aim to make Europe a competitive marketplace for the manufacturing and recycling and the mining of materials for the batteries, especially for the upcoming electrical car industry. At that time, we saw the potential of a 250 billion a year industry that was received with a lot of skepticism. But today we're already at around 70 billion a year industry. And that is more than China invested in the same period in their own battery industry. You've probably seen the news. Volkswagen now wants to start building more factories with our first unicorn. Oops, it's right here. That is Northvolt in Sweden. And Northvolt is also a very nice example of how we work and how we justify our claim that we are able to de-risk and reduce time to market of those things that we invest in. So Northvolt was a startup of 2 people coming from Tesla that wanted to start a factory in Sweden for batteries. And together with another few early investors, we supported their idea. It actually started off as an innovation project. And to help them de-risk and to help them speed up their plans, we traditionally did what we're always doing. We help them along these axes. So, for instance, we enrich their value chain by also setting up lithium mines in Spain and Portugal and Germany. We brought them into contact with Volkswagen, that promptly became their shareholders and now is setting up more factories in Europe. We set up the European Battery Alliance, which gave them also the possibility to position themselves in the European Union in Brussels. That in turn, with the help of us, got the largest loan of the European Investment Bank of 350 million to accommodate their growth. We helped them to enhance their technology, which gave them a competitive advantage over other manufacturers, especially Asia. Help them to human capital, and we have a governing seat in their board. So obviously, Northvolt is one of our successes, and we have more of those unicorns coming soon. So at sometime last year, the European Commission asked us, hey, so what you did for the European batteries, could you do the same for green hydrogen? And we said no, because we already saw various value chains around hydrogen. Number two, we only wanted to focus on green hydrogen and not also on blue. Number three, we saw that the discussion that was held around green hydrogen was the wrong one, namely that in many cases, hydrogen was the goal and not the means as we see it. And lastly, we saw that there was a lot of discussion about the price of green hydrogen that we find irrelevant. And actually the price of green hydrogen, it's actually the incumbents that foster that discussion for obvious reasons. But we see it's not the price of the green hydrogen that matters, it's the price of the end product that the customer is willing to pay, where hydrogen has played a role to decarbonize. And I have the example of steel later on. But we still see the possibility of using hydrogen as an enabler for the decarbonization of large CO2 intensive industries. It enables sector coupling, gas and electricity. I don't have to tell you this. And we want to capitalize on what we learned from the European Battery Alliance, so setting up ecosystems and investing in large industrial projects. And how do we do that? We do what we always have done. We connect industry with the investors and our own ecosystem, and we set up large industrial projects. Now for green steel, for green hydrogen, we focus on steel, cement, shipping, heavy goods vehicles, and also feedstock for instance, fertilizers. And for us, it's what matters is the whole, that we cover the whole value chain. So from the production of renewable energy to including the end product. So it's not our intent to produce green hydrogen and take renewable energy off the grid, and then somewhere else we need to switch on a former mothballed coal-fired power plant. No, we cover the whole value chain. Also, difference with the previous initiatives is that it's an industry-led initiative and not a political one out of Brussels. So as I said, in many cases, there's this discussion that green hydrogen is too expensive. Well, guess what? It is the incumbents that say this all the time, and we have proven the opposite, that green hydrogen does not necessarily be too expensive, and it's not. You should not look at the price of green hydrogen, but we should look at the end product, where you use green hydrogen to decarbonize your process. Well, in this example here, there's the example of green steel, where traditionally you have all these supplier off-taker agreements, and where all the players want to optimize their own profits. And then at the end of the day, the green hydrogen is blamed for the fact that you're not able to share a common vision and view of making, in this particular case, green steel. So, with the same people that we invested in the early days with Northvolt, we started the idea to explore the possibilities of making green steel. And here also it's again important that the off-taker is in the picture, which is Scania and a few other white good manufacturers. They're in the picture, and together with them we have set up a special purpose vehicle where the important players, technology providers, off-takers, steel makers are in the consortium that have only one goal, and that is to make green steel such that we can decarbonize, in this case, a car. And if you look at then what the price increase will be on, let's say, a 30,000 euro passenger car, the price that you have to pay for green steel would be around 80 to 100 euro, which obviously is nothing because at the same time you have decarbonized a large CO2 emitter in your country. So again, so what we do, we always look at how to de-risk and speed up our investments. We did that with Northvolt. Together with the same entrepreneurs, we have set up a special purpose vehicle with the off-taker and technology providers for green steel in Sweden. And part of this, what we do is also we give access to finance. And we're doing that through the business investment platform that we set up for the European Battery Alliance, and that we're now replicating for hydrogen. And what we saw in the battery landscape is that there were very many good ideas and entrepreneurs and consortia that have ideas, but they found it difficult to find access to finance, and that's where we broker that access. And what is our added value? So our money is actually fairly expensive. It is relatively expensive, but it is the added value that we bring that lowers the risks and speeds up the time to market. And because we're in there, other investors see that the business case has already been de-risked and then are willing to step in. So what we're looking for, we're looking for large-scale industrial projects where hydrogen is used to decarbonize. Our first one is then green steel in Sweden. And how does it work? So suppose you are a company that would like to decarbonize a value chain. Right now, for instance, we are talking with a shipping company that would like to decarbonize their fleet for ships that are used for ferries. The second one is a company that would like to decarbonize kerosene, so making synthetic fuel for airplanes. And the last one we're talking with is a consortium of off-takers in France that would like to off-take green hydrogen from Spain. So we're always looking at larger value chains. They come to us, and either they already have a value chain or in a consortium, or they ask us to help this. They pitch their business case to us. And if a external committee finds this could be a bankable business case, we jointly set up a special purpose vehicle. We invest and we make the business case bankable. And then we get the consortium the access to private investors and public financing. And then it should fly. So I mentioned already a few times, green steel in Sweden. How does it work? Well, what you do, or what we're going to do, is we're going to electrify the complete value chain of steel. Traditionally, when you make steel, the first step is what you need to do is you need to separate the iron atom from the oxygen atom. And you do that by using a furnace that is fired on natural gas usually. And then the oxygen binds itself to the carbon of the natural gas. And there you go, you have a lot of CO2 that goes up in the atmosphere, or you try to catch it. And then you have the iron atom that you mix with scrap steel in an electric arc furnace, and then you're able to follow the rest of the process. What we do now with hydrogen is that in this process where you want to reduce the iron, you do not use natural gas, but you use hydrogen. And then as opposed to CO2, you get water vapor into the atmosphere. And then you get a slightly different steel called sponge iron, but still you will be able to mix it with scrap iron. What also makes this concept a little bit different is that we use the idea of recycling. So we're going to recycle the goods back into the electric arc furnace. So here's the consortium, and they're not everybody's in there because some of the consortium partners do not want to go public yet. But Vargas is the company that we started Northvolt with, together with the entrepreneurs of Northvolt, Scania, the off-taker, SMS Group, the industrial group, and a few other private investors like EMAS, which is IKEA, the founder of Spotify, and a few other rich individuals. Again, what makes it fly is it is the whole value chain. And so in this case, wind energy and hydropower is used. That is in excess of Sweden. And the off-taker is there in the consortium as well. And by the way, actually this, so they finished just their A round financing, and they were long on their financing. So there were actually more financiers than needed on money. So a little bit, so last slide. So hydrogen is not new for us. Since 2014, we have already invested in hydrogen-like startups and innovation projects, and obviously also the step before that in renewables, PV, wind, and tidal wave. So we got a few ones in our value chain or in our portfolio. We got the HyMeth, which is a Danish company making a new electrolyzer. IC Labs is a company that transports hydrogen in a silica gel. And Green Steel is our newest initiatives. And then we got a few others like HPS, which is a German company that stores electricity in the form of hydrogen over seasons. That concludes my presentation, and I look forward to the questions that come afterwards.
Thank you, Jacob, for this presentation, for having shown us some very relevant figures, I would say, and about the activities of Tenerrdis, in particular about this accelerator you are now promoting. I can confirm that green hydrogen is too expensive is a refrain we often hear, and I think it's very interesting, this approach you presented, this value chain approach based on satisfaction of the demand of innovation of relevant energy intensive sectors where with high energy consumption, and in particular consumption of energy from not renewable energy sources or fossil fuels. So you clearly stated that green hydrogen is a mean, is not a goal. So I think this is something we have to keep in mind.
Yes.
Thank you again. We move now again back to our region, the Piedmont region, with a focus on which are the available opportunities for foreign enterprises interested in making business and innovation in and investment, in particular in some of the sectors, which are the clean tech and energy sector, and automotive and transportation, which is one of our historically relevant sector of our region. And so I leave the floor to Rosanna Viola and Laura Campagna from the Piemonte Agency for Investment and Export for their presentation. Please, Rosanna.
Okay, so just starting. Hello, everyone. I'm starting sharing the screen. Okay, so hello, everyone. I'm dealing with foreign investment promotion at the Piemonte Agency. And so let's start explaining what our agency is. We are the one-stop shop to get to know all about Piemonte region and its business and investment opportunities. Our journey started in 1976 with local chambers of commerce, and we deal with internationalization of local companies. In 2006, all local bodies which are dealing with internationalization were merged together in order to boost the international role of Piemonte. We are a public-owned body. Our promoting members are Piemonte region, local chambers of commerce, and our smaller partners like local universities. Piemonte Agency has the goal to be the reference point for companies interested in locating in Piemonte, in searching for suppliers and partners in different sectors, or needing technical trading regarding trade. In particular, foreign investment promotion team advises on every aspect of starting and running a business in Piemonte, providing assistance at every stage of the project. We also support companies that are already invested in our region. Our services are free, responsive, tailor-made, and totally confidential. So let's start talking about Piemonte region and its opportunities. Piemonte is a promising and economically stable region with easy access to Europe's single market. Piemonte is a highly industrialized region with very strong capabilities in manufacturing. We are also very focused on export. Just to give you some ideas with numbers, we have 7.3% of national population, 7.7% of national GDP, but almost 10% of national export. So just some geographical references. We are in the northwest of Italy, in the heart of Europe, very close to France and Switzerland. We are very easily linked to the rest of Europe thanks to rail and motorways. Torino city has its own international airport, and it's just 50 minutes away from Malpensa Intercontinental Airport. So let's talk about Piemonte industries. The most important industries in our region are automotive, aerospace, and life science. Automotive is traditionally the most important industry in our region because here was born Fiat, now part of Stellantis Group. We have more than a third of total Italian automotive components companies. Alongside traditional capabilities, our companies are now facing, well, all the changes in this sector, hydrogen, but also electrification, connected vehicles, and autonomous driving. Also, aerospace is an important industry in our region. We have five key players: Thales Alenia Space, Leonardo, GE Avio, Collins, and Altec. Also, in the last years, it's becoming more and more important, the new space economy. Last but not least, life science industry is becoming more and more important, mainly about pharmaceutical and biotech field. So let's talk about R&D and innovation. We are one of the leading regions in Italy regarding R&D, thanks to our university, our research centers, and of course our innovation hubs. We have high level of HR, and we employ many people in specialized research. We also register a big number of high-tech patents. In particular, talking about university, we are very proud of our excellence. We have 4 universities. Politecnico di Torino is a worldwide famous technical university specialized in engineering and architecture. Università degli Studi di Torino is a big and old university with expertise in many fields. Università del Piemonte Orientale is a young and dynamic university specialized in scientific degrees. Università delle Scienze Gastronomiche is a private university regarding high quality food. So let's talk about our stock of FDI, meaning our multinational companies that are already invested in our region. So due to recent detection, we see that more than 1,000 companies is already present in Piemonte, and they have almost 3,000 of local units. They mainly come from France, United States, Germany, Switzerland, and United Kingdom. Regarding sectors, they mainly deal with manufacturing industry or in the trade field, but there is also relevant presence of companies dealing with energy. So here you can see some of the companies that are already in our region. Consider that altogether they guarantee about 140,000 workplaces. So let's start talking about incentive opportunities in our region. Piemonte is very active in this field using ROP ERDF funds thanks to its financial branch in Piemonte. In particular, today I would like to talk about a measure dedicated to SMEs willing to invest in Piemonte. This is a measure, it's divided into lines, and it covers 100% of expenses with soft loans, of expenses of acquisition of new buildings, machinery and equipment, and also to foster R&D. And we also have line B, which gives no repayable grant to support new hirings, up to 20,000 euro per person. So I would like to give the word to my colleague, Rosanna.
Thank you, Laura. So my name is Rosanna Viola. I am one of the responsible in charge for several projects within the Piemonte agency in Piemonte. So as you have understood, we are a system integrator. So we are an agency that promotes the investment in the region. And we do work also with the companies based in the region. So we are not attracting, or we are not dealing only with startup, but we are dealing most of all with small and medium-sized innovative companies based in the region that are about 460,000 companies in the region. So our main job together with the innovation centers, the labs that are in the region, is to work together and try to attract the most relevant technologies and innovation through also incentives and measures that the Piemonte region give us the possibility to handle. Here are just some of the recent investment in the energy field that were follow up, in particular the one of Punch Torino. Punch was acquired last year, the former General Motors Research Institute, with about 700 engineers. And they started just this year with a new consortia on hydrogen sectors, on Punch hydrocells. And now what we are doing with them, we're assisting to create a new supply chain with the companies that they are in the region. So you know that automotive, as Laura mentioned before, automotive is one of the traditional and most important sector in the region, with all the manufacturing sectors and with aerospace, and of course with clean tech and energy and green building and so on. But so what we normally do is we try together with the other innovation labs and together with the other relevant bodies that are in the region to try to identify the best and qualified companies. And we do for all the investors that are willing to to come in the region. So we are assisting Punch, but we, for example, we are assisting a young startup coming from United States that they are dealing with the battery optimization that are willing to land in Piemonte. We just assisted 2 weeks ago a new space economy scale-up that decided to open at Environment Park a new offices. And now we are trying to assist also Italvolt. They just opened, they just decided to open a gigafactory in Piemonte. And of course, as the last investment, we will try to identify the best possibilities and opportunities for them to work with the local based companies. Just a few words about the key sectors in Piemonte. So I think that it's important. So we mentioned aerospace, automotive and transportation, and the life sciences, but of course the core today is clean technologies and hydrogen, but Piemonte is quite important also for designing creative industries, for fashion jewelry, mechatronics, textiles, and agri-food. So about clean technologies, some few figures about the companies that we have in the region. We have about 1,300 companies. That means 33,000 employees with about 1,000 patents, 1,100 patents, and the 4 incubators that we mentioned before. What are the companies based in the region? These are the most relevant key players that we deal with. Some are multinationals, some are companies based in the region, like Piedmontese companies like Novamont, Ambiente, and these are these are also the companies that we deal with also to identify opportunities also on innovation opportunities. So we can be the right partner also for international companies, and the clean tech and green build supply and integrated project. How do we work? We work with a supply chain project. That means that Piemonte region give us the possibility to work together with about 100 companies. We monitor all the companies, which are most of them small and medium-sized companies. We clusterize and we try to identify for them the opportunity, the business opportunities. So we are not so much on a technical side, but more on a commercial side. That means that we go over abroad together with the companies to promote the region and their competencies. So clean tech is one of the clean tech and green building is one of the supply chain project, and is focused on waste, water, energy, green and smart building and green chemistry. So far, we are also focusing on hydrogen since it's the topic of today, but always together with the relevant industry that we have in the region, like Punch that we mentioned before. So just obviously, we are Piemonte is relevant for most of the important technologies connected to waste, to water, and so the activities that Piemonte agency that do in with participating in important relevant initiatives in the world. We invite important buyers coming from different countries. So for example, here we mentioned different activities that we're going to organize this year and next year. For example, also we will be participating in important initiatives. So this means that we organize a collective participation of Piedmontese companies, and we try to create B2B meetings with all the relevant regions in the world. We mentioned automotive. So as far as automotive industry, this is one of the most important and relevant industry in the region. And so the 34% of the Italian automotive components industry is based in Piemonte. So here was born the automotive industry, and 39% of the Italian automotive components turnover come from Piemonte. So this is a region where all the companies that coming from abroad, so that's why we have so many multinationals that decided to open an office here. They can find not only the universities, not only the technological side, but also the components, all the engineering and all the possibilities to create new opportunities. We mentioned before which are the players that are in the region. We mentioned Punch, but we mentioned Stellantis, we mentioned FEV, so different players, next slide please, that are relevant, SKF and so on. So we had of course also a context where before was mentioned Norfolk. So for example, also players like Norfolk are quite important also for all the players in the automotive sector based in the region. So we deal with an integrated supply chain companies. In this case, we have all the integrated supply chain companies. So starting from style, starting from engineering to create the opportunity or complete car prototype, also in with new propulsion systems. Next activities, which is quite important also for the hydrogen sector, is an event called the Vehicle and Transportation Technology Meetings that we are going to organize the next year, 2022, in Torino. This is the event that we invite all the important speakers and labs and innovation centers that are invited today, because in 2021 there will be a teaser, so a prequel of this event that will be in September, and the focus will be hydrogen. So together with Environment Park, all the partners today, we will create an event in September in order to invite next year in 2022 important speakers, important buyers, international buyers, to touch with us the possibilities that we have in the region. So thank you for the moment. Thank you, Luca and Giulia Razzetti, for having given us the possibility to be here as a speaker. And I give again the floor to Luca.
Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Rosanna. And well, you showed that our historical industrial vocation of our territory is for sure something relevant in some way. Is an opportunity to make innovation and create new business opportunities. So you showed for sure some good examples also of initiatives that are starting from this vocation of our territory. Also, I think from your presentation, it was quite clear that Piemonte Agency is one relevant actor, and that all the actors are trying, everyone with its own specificities, to work together with the same goals. So this was also one of the aims of the Smart Energy project, to use clusters in this case. With this project as a hub for access a wider network of actors that are working to promote research and innovation in our region. So thank you. Giulia remarked that there is the possibility to make questions if you want with the question and answer function. So now next presentation. We go to France this time, and according to European targets and strategies, most of European countries are working on their own strategies for promotion and development of hydrogen, with specific goals and specific also funding measures for investment in research, innovation, and market development. This can open opportunities for collaboration also with the support of the clusters as actors which are able to promote matching between demand for innovation and offer of innovation of ecosystem actors that can potentially satisfy this demand. So next presentation is from Ingrid Milsan from Tenerrdis, one of the partners in the Smart Energy project. The floor is up to you, Ingrid. Thank you.
Thank you, Luca, and good morning, everybody. Happy to be with you. I work indeed for Tenerrdis Energy Cluster. We are based in Grenoble, not too far from Torino, through across the Alps. This is a representation of our focus sectors. So we are a cluster organization. We are a non-profit organization with members on the triple helix model that has already been mentioned. And our focus is described in this slide across 6 strategic sectors, one being the renewable energy production and integration into the mix, and the different application markets of this energy are carbon-free mobility, where hydrogen is one of the means to reach this carbon-free mobility, and also energy storage and conversion, where again you find not only batteries but also hydrogen as a strong storage mean. And also this energy is used, of course, for buildings and industry, where energy efficiency is another topic of importance. And we also deal with multi-energy microgrids, because as it has been mentioned, there are different ways now to go from gas to electricity, or vice versa, from electricity to hydrogen. So grids have to be looked at in a multi-energy way. And of course, we want this whole energy grids to be very secure. And for this reason, we have a specific topic related to embedded intelligence and cybersecurity for energy systems, which we deal with together with another cluster in our region who is focusing on digital technologies, which is a Minalogic cluster. A few figures about our cluster. We have 244 members, out of which 174 are either startups, SMEs, or medium-sized companies. So a lot of small players. We organize usually a lot of events. Of course, in 2020 it was a bit particular, but we still organized 64 events, which gathered 3,500 participants. Of course, most of our events in last year were virtual and digital, but we hope to be able to organize soon again some real face-to-face events. We support innovative projects among our members, and as well at the European level, and this will be also the end of my presentation as a way to collaborate with us. We have a partnership with the Solar Impulse Foundation, and we've helped them reach their target of 1,000 solutions that they want to label for the next COP 26, and we've had 15 solutions from our members which have reached that label. We are present on the social networks, but this is less important. So now to the specific topic of hydrogen. As Luca has stated, of course, we in France were very happy in last year when finally our government went out with a very strong commitment to the hydrogen sector. for a bit of history, we in Tenerrdis, we exist since 2005, so we are 15 years old, and since the beginning, hydrogen is one of our key sectors, was clearly identified as a sector of excellence of our region, and therefore we've been really promoting these technologies for the last 15 years, and of course we were very happy to see that at least the national level and the government was convinced last year that it was the way to go forward for the energy transition. So this is very important. France has committed to for a budget of 7 billion euros on the hydrogen sector for the next years, and out of which 2 billion to be spent before 2022. So that's a lot of money, and of course it created a lot of interest in France for this technology. If we look a bit more specifically at the goals of the government with regard to hydrogen technology, of course, we have the final goal of creating jobs, like everybody has, I guess, throughout the world, but really more specifically, there are some goals to really install enough electrolyzers to have an impact, a CO2 impact, and an economic impact, I guess, because it is believed that through the use of very large electrolyzers for the industry sector, like it has been mentioned by Jakob for the green hydrogen accelerator, it's really the industry sector which has very large needs, volumes of hydrogen that we can help cut the costs for the electrolyzer equipment. And then, of course, this will have an impact on the transportation sector, because as cost will be driven down, then the technologies will become more and more competitive for the transportation sector. So here, through these charts, you see the funding priorities for the coming 4 years. As I mentioned, industry is a very strong focus. 54% of the funding of the French hydrogen plan will go to decarbonize the industry sector. So it's all the sectors that have been mentioned by Jakob in his previous presentation: steel, cement, fertilizers, of course, everything is in this part of the pie. Then mobility will account for 27% of the funding scheme, and not to be forgotten, almost 20% of the funding will go to research and innovation. Now I will zoom at the regional level to see what is happening in our Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region. The region has started earlier, has not waited for the national plan to happen to start working on hydrogen, because, as I mentioned, we in Tenerrdis were working on this technology for a long time, and we were already working with the region to have their interest on this technology. And I would like to focus on a large mobility project that was launched in 2017 that is called Zero Emission Valley, ZEV. That is led by an entity that was created specifically by the region for that purpose. We will see who's inside. So it's called High Impulsion, with the help of the European Commission, who co-funded this project together with the French Agency for the Energy Ecology Transition, ADEME. So the project, the idea of the project is to roll out at the regional level 20 hydrogen refueling stations, out of which 15 would have local electrolyzers. And at the same time, 1,200 vehicles, so that you have this kind of guarantee that the stations will be used and the vehicles will find some stations to fuel. So this is an indicative map of where the stations will be located and where there will be electrolyzers also. So a deeper look into this Impulsion company that was launched specifically to be the coordinator of the Zero Emission Valley project. This is a semi-public company with the region being the #1 shareholder with 33% of the shares in the company. And then two strategic and important French corporates, ENGIE on the energy sector and Michelin on the mobility side, who are both also very well represented in our region. As you may not know, Michelin is originally from Clermont-Ferrand, which is one of the cities of Auvergne-Rhône-Alpes region. And then you have some banks, the subsidiary of Caisse des Dépôts, which is the national bank, Banque des Territoires, is here with 16%, and Crédit Agricole as well. So a good example also of how the effort is being supported by a mix of public and private entities at the regional level. Then, who are the partners of this Zero Emission Valley project? In fact, for the commissioning of the filling stations and electrolyzers, there has been a call for project launched by the Impulsion company, and they have selected a consortium of three regional companies, some of which may be more well-known than others. You may know McPhee, and Attaway has been mentioned also by Jacob as being supported by InnoEnergy, and H2SMARTENERGY is another local supplier of hydrogen refueling station. So these will provide the equipment, and then ENGIE Solutions will provide the support and maintenance for all phases of the project. In this map, I want to show you the diversity of stakeholders within our cluster. All of these are members of our cluster, and all of these players have something to do with hydrogen. And not all are 100% focused on hydrogen. For example, CNR, his Compagnie Nationale du Rhône, is a large renewable energy producer, but they as well have a strong interest on hydrogen to help them make the best use of their renewable energy. So a lot of interest and in our region for hydrogen technologies, and we will be happy to help you connect with the right players as needed. On the research side, we have a very large research entity called the CEA, which has different branches. One looking at the nuclear power, which is based in Paris, and in Grenoble, our home city, is the head of the CEA Litten, which focuses on energy technologies. So this research center gathers more than 1,000 employees and works a lot with industry partners. It's very applied research, and they have more than 350 industry players. I won't go into the details of all their platform, but they are very strong player, and they are located just across our building in Grenoble. Focus on their hydrogen storage and production platform. just this platform has 40 engineers and it has been it has given birth to a startup called Silfen, which is also supported by InnoEnergy and is working on SOFC, so solid oxide fuel cells, which is a high temperature fuel cell. So just to show you that this research is also bringing on the market technologies that can create jobs and startups. Another major player that is well known is which is based in our area is Air Liquide. The site in near Grenoble is the #1 industrial site in France. Their headquarters are in Paris for I guess political reasons, but the most of the employees, there are more than 1,000 employees in this this local site, and that's where they design the hydrogen refueling stations, work on cryogenic technologies, rocket tanks, and micro fuel cells as well. So of course they are a partner member of our cluster. McPhee is a more recent company, but which is starting to be well known. It's they are on the stock market. They are almost 100 employees now. They have 5 sites in Europe, with 2 of them in Italy, because they bought electrolyzer company in Italy at the beginning of their history, and they are on a very good slope, growing with the hydrogen market, and they target 3 markets: industry, mobility, and energy. So as a conclusion, I would like to give you some hints on what you can call us for. We have a very strong interest for European projects, not only as a cluster. This Smart Energy project is an example of a project that involves the cluster itself, but we are also very much dedicated to helping our companies get on board of European projects, and we have for that a person full-time, Hervé, who is working on helping our partners, our members, get on board of European projects. So if you are willing to build or to get on board of a European project, you think you have a technology that is very differentiative, then you can contact Hervé to be on his list, on his network, and to hopefully work on projects together. And of course, in the same way as Piemonte agency has presented its services, we have local agencies in our region that are dedicated to help foreign companies investigate how they can settle in our region. I've given you here 2 names. One is to around Grenoble area. The entity is called Invest in Grenoble Alps, and Andrea Busch is the contact for the energy and more specifically the hydrogen sector, because as I mentioned, there is a lot of interest for hydrogen sector in our this Grenoble area. And in Lyon, that's another agency which is called Invest in Lyon, and Marie-Laure Alonso will be happy to help you analyze the opportunities for this region, this area, sorry, of our territory. So that's it for my side. I'm very happy to answer your questions if you have any. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ingrid, for this real-time overview of what's moving on hydrogen in Rhône-Alpes region, Rhône-Alpes region, and in terms of strategies, initiatives, programs, and players. Okay, so now we move from France to Belgium, another region, in particular Wallonia region, with another of the smart energy partners. It's the TWID cluster. Also in Belgium, hydrogen as a role, and in particular the TWID cluster, as we see, has worked on the analysis of the hydrogen value chain and also a possible roadmap for hydrogen technologies in the region. So I leave the floor to Cedric Brul from TWID cluster. Please, Cedric, it's up to you.
Okay, you are hearing me well?
Yes.
All right. So good morning, everyone. So I will continue the presentation. It's totally in line with the other presentation that has been done this morning. You will see that every region has its own plan, and so I will try to in few slides to explain what is going on in Belgium and Wallonia, because for sure Wallonia is one of the 3 regions from Belgium. So we are a cluster, the energy cluster in Wallonia and Brussels, so the French-speaking part of Belgium. We are representing 140 members and players in the value chain of renewable energy and energy transition. Our day-to-day work is like the other clusters. It's for sure it's to create the networking support projects, studies, and identify new value chain for our region. And we have for more than 10 years right now, we have identified more than 350 players and technologies in our ecosystem from Wallonia and Brussels that have at least one services or product on the components in the renewable energy value chain. And you can discover all these players in a website that is rewallonia.be, and you can have different the value chain, and you can select the part that you want to discover the players, or invite you to discover this website and maybe to select some potential partners for European projects. So for each players, all the players have some tags where the strong knowledge that they have. So for example, here it's a player for treatment and recycling, and we see that they are working on pyrolysis, and they can be a player for synthetic fuels. They are working as well for solar industry because they are making the recycling of panels, and so on and so on. And so it's quite useful tool to discover partners and projects. In 2 slides, what is going on in Wallonia and Belgium in energy transition. For sure, like all the countries in Europe, we have the Paris, and worldwide we have the Paris Climate Conference 6 years ago. So the first binding climate agreement. And so with the European objective, we have 2 different objectives. One is the federal Belgian level, where the main objective is to exit the nuclear for 2025 is one of the main objectives that we have right now in Belgium. And at the regional level, we have an objective for sure in renewable energy for 2030. It's 24, let's say, % of renewable energy. So it's not quite very ambitious if we see other countries. For sure, Wallonia and Belgium in general, it's a very dense and small country with a lot of industry consumption and a less potential for renewables. So we have small objective in comparison with other countries, but we have a strong objective in energy reduction for transport, for buildings, and for industry inside the European trading scheme, but also with the European Trading Scheme industry. So when we see the main challenge in Belgium is to get out of the nuclear plants. It represents more than 50% of the electricity. For sure, electricity represents 25% of the energy. So in the end, it's not the main part of the energy transition, nuclear, but still it's a non-carbon emission way of producing electricity. And so the main challenge is to create more renewables in very short time, and in the same time create some markets, new markets, to create some business models to have new renewables inside energy communities, improving the self-consumption, improving the capacity reserve. So because of the nuclear reduction production, we need some reserve. That could be gas turbine, that could be storage with batteries, that could be demand side management. And so what's really potential in Belgium is that we are creating some markets for frequency, for reserve, and this type of market that is very flexible market, we are creating new players like the aggregators, for example, and we see that there is a lot of appetite, let's say, of the other countries of this type of players. A few years ago, some big names and big companies from France, UK, Netherlands have bought some players of Belgium because we have created some markets about the flexibility. And so we see that Belgium is really very strong about the flexibility, interconnection of the energy. And for sure, we see hydrogen and CO2 networks as a main driver for the next few years. So if we go deep now in the hydrogen ecosystem in Wallonia, we have created a few weeks ago an H2 hub Wallonia, because as you will see, we have quite strong objectives for hydrogen in Belgium and in Wallonia in general. Let's start with Belgium view. It's an overview of potential objectives. So it's not a political objective, but it's more an industry vision that what could be done in hydrogen in Belgium. We see that for sure one of the main objectives is to transform industry like ammonia with hydrogen sector. We see a very big potential for synthetic fuels for the aeronautics, and because we have a few airports for sure in Belgium. We see the objective of electrification, and it was already mentioned in the first presentation that electrification of processes like steel or glass manufacturers is a really main objective. And when they have done a part of the electrification of the process, they need hydrogen. And so we see that for some industries, for ammonia, for transport, and even for buildings, hydrogen could be a strong players. There is two vision here. One is for sure to create some electrolyzers. We have two electrolyzer manufacturers in Belgium. So it's John Cockerill and Hydrogenics. That is a Canadian company, but it is based here in Europe, in Belgium. So two main electrolyzer manufacturers for a small country is quite very, very great. And we have some connection for sure with McPhee in France, because some players like Luminus, EDF are strong in Belgium and as well in France. So for sure we have some electrolyzers manufacturers. So it's one of the main objectives in Belgium. With onshore wind, offshore wind, and solar photovoltaic, the main part will come for the first part from offshore wind, because we are the third main offshore wind country worldwide in terms of capacity. And the second part is because we are a small country with a lot of industries, we know that we will import a lot of hydrogen. And so we have a dedicated strategy to make some collaboration with international countries to import some hydrogen in the future. If we see the vision of the grid operator at the Belgium level, we see that there is a strong vision about the infrastructure of hydrogen and CO2, because the two are connected, with a strong pipeline. So the first pipeline where of hydrogen were for sure managed by Air Liquide, that is very strong in Belgium as well. But in the future, Fluxys, that is the grid operator, want to create a very big hydrogen and CO2 pipeline around Belgium, with the creation of some industrial cluster that will be managed in Antwerp, because it's very big. A part of industry in Belgium are placed there, Ghent, and for Wallonia it's Charleroi and Liège. And for sure, when we have this infrastructure with an energy hub in Zeebrugge that is a plan to import some hydrogen, we see that really the strong way and asset that we have, because we are very connected already with France, Netherlands, Germany, even UK. And for electricity, we are connected, and we will be connected with Denmark, and we are connected for sure with gas with Norway. So we are very connected with all the other countries, and we see Belgium and Wallonia as a hub for this infrastructure in the near future term. If we go right now in the Wallonia level, we have managed 3 years ago a roadmap for industry for Wallonia. I've placed every time the link, and so you can click on the link to discover the studies. Here, this study was made in French, just to preface, so you can read it for sure if you can read French. And we have played some different parts of scenarios where we can place hydrogen in the value chain in 2030 and 50. Every time we try to make a comparison with some wind turbines. So I like to have a vision of, if we place an objective to, for example, here, the objective for industry in ammonia. We have one big plant of ammonia production in Wallonia. If we want to change just this plant in hydrogen, we need 50 or 60% of the wind turbines that are placed right now, just for one industrial site. And so every time that we have this objective of hydrogen, for sure we need to see it as a green hydrogen or low carbon at least. And so it's really the objective to have this comparison with renewables. So we have to improve our renewable part in Belgium, or to have an import vision, or at least to make low carbon. So for example, with a pyrolysis or with carbon storage and so on and so on. We have proposed to our government some pilot projects in station, buses, trucks, project for balancing strategic reserve to use hydrogen in injection in the grid. We have proposed some industrial production of hydrogen in 2 industrial sites. We have proposed some pilot project for combined with biogas in the agro-food industry. And so we have proposed some pilot project 3 years ago, and right now we are quite happy, because I will present you just the recovery plan of Wallonia in 2-3 slides, and you will see that our project have been not been selected, but still we have a budget to place this project and roadmap of this project in Wallonia. We have done a value chain analysis for hydrogen in Wallonia, from R&D to engineering, finance, manufacturing, installation, operation, maintenance, training, education. Every time we try to see where are the players, where are the projects, where can we place our members and players in the value chain. Here it's the value chain that is related to the project. So when you need, you want to place a project for hydrogen, you need different types of players. That is really a cluster value chain, let's say, because it's not just one technical players, but you need a lot of different players. And for sure, if we go in the technology side, we have as well other Belgian and international as well, but that are placed in Belgium and Wallonia for the different part of the value chain inside the electrolyzers, electrical devices, compression systems, storage, and so on and so on. We see more and more appetite from companies in the different very specific part of the value chain. If I take the compression system, we see players that are related to aeronautics, for example. They are very strong in it in Belgium, and now they want to go deep to help the hydrogen sector with this with the knowledge, because they have learned, they have heard that they have billions of euros that will be invested in the value chain, so they are very interested. And so as a cluster, we try to help them to jump in this new value chain. And I'm sure that we need to do it as an European level to build it. Another part that is very important for a cluster is the R&D project that we are helping for the cluster inside the region. In the last 5 years, we have injected 8 million euros of hydrogen R&D projects. Last 3 years, sorry. Here it's some names and some of projects that we have helped. It's more related to the electrolyzers, so with some specific technologies to improve the hydrogen production inside the electrolyzers. We have a strong knowledge in the fuel cells, and to be specific in the bipolar plates, with some test bench that we can provide. And so for R&D projects in European level, we can use it for sure. We have other projects in more the small hydrogen vehicles, trucks, and another one, the last one is H2 Green. It was an European Horizon 2020 project for to replace the catalyst by enzyme. So it's more an organic way to produce hydrogen, so it's very unique. And we see that more and more R&D budget is planned in the hydrogen sector. And as I've presented, so the roadmap, we are quite happy because 2 months ago, our region has decided that inside the recovery plan for Belgium, and and every region has proposed some projects, our region, Wallonia, has proposed 160 million euros plan inside the recovery plan. So we have 1 billion in total, and inside the 1 billion in this plan, we have 160 million just for hydrogen. So we are quite happy because we have strong and very important projects inside the industry and mobility and so on and so on. And we need subsidies in CapEx to make this project happen, and to create really strong players in it. So as you see, we have 8 projects that have been identified. So they have not been selected right now. It will be in September that the selection process will be done. But for sure, we will invest in the next 4 years, because we have 4 years to spend it. And for just our region, it's 160 million. So for a small region, we are quite happy for this amount. Just to end my presentation, I will give you 4 examples of projects that we are helping right now. First, it's the Columbus project. It's a project with Carmeuse. So Carmeuse is it will replace its production of lime kiln to produce, in fact, the methane. And so they will capture the CO2 inside the industry, and with hydrogen from an electrolyzer stack that will represent 75 megawatt electrolyzer. So it's quite huge electrolyzer from John Cockerill, manufacturer of electrolyzer, and they will produce a project of e-methane with Tenerrdis. So I think it's a startup from France, but for sure it's a startup from NG, or NG is part of it. And so all this technology will be proposed in one industrial site in Wallonia. And it's a project that has been proposed in the EPCI Europe plan. So we are waiting for the results, but we are quite I think it will be a success, because it's the only project that the region has proposed. So for sure it will be a main important project, but with a huge amount of capex needed to produce it. Another very important project is to use hydrogen to power an airport fleet. So in the Liège airport, it's one of the main logistic airport in Europe, Liège airport, and the objective here is to produce hydrogen with an electrolyzer on the site of the airport, and to use electricity for the electrification of the different vehicle fleet of the airport. So for example, not the trucks, but the cars that are taking the plane in the end inside the airport, for example. So a very interesting project. Another one is an European project with a few players of our clusters, and Norway as well, Denmark and Norway. It was an European project where we have helped to work on hybrid storage hydrogen, and we use batteries and fuel cells technology to create a smart energy hub. And I took this example because the technology will come from France and Grenoble technology. I don't remember the name of the player right now.
Silfen. It's Silfen.
Silfen. Thank you, Ingrid. So it's not decided yet, but it's in the radar, let's say. So for sure, we are interested to have the Silfen technology for the first time in Belgium. We have the interest of the grid operator, and we have identified Silfen because we have been in mission in Grenoble, and we are connected to Ingrid, and so on and so on. And right now, I think we have the project and the European money to have the first project. So I hope it will be a success. But just to say that we can work as an European level to build some interesting project and business cases. And last one project about hydrogen for mobility. Here, and we see more and more interest in this project. This project is called Interest, is to make the production of wind and PV locally, and to with an artificial intelligence to make a planification of EV vehicles, of hydrogen and batteries, and the links with the networks. And so we plan for the 20 years to come. We optimize the best application in terms of components that we can provide to produce a mobility for trucks or small cars, and so on and so on. And so this type of projects is more and more interesting, because we see for sure batteries and electric vehicles are already a existing market, and the next future market is hydrogen for maybe not cars in the beginning, but still for bigger utility cars and trucks, for sure. So that was my presentation. I hope you have discovered what is going on in Wallonia in Belgium about hydrogen.
Thank you, Cedric. You mentioned a couple of times in your presentation also the relation between hydrogen and CO2, which is one of the relevant topics that we talked about in the former webinars, presenting also some projects working on this. I think most of all you also presented that the development of hydrogen technologies is not only related to high-level research and innovation initiatives and projects, but also to a clear vision and action plans based on analysis. And so this is, I think, a good presentation of regional approach to hydrogen technologies. So thank you. We finally go back to Italy with an initiative in which the Clever Cluster and Environment Park, which I represent, are member. And this initiative is the National Energy Technology Cluster, with today represented by Mr. Giampiero Celata. And this initiative was born with the aim to create a community at the national level of private and public organizations interested to collaborate on projects having at least national interest. So this national cluster has also contributed to what is actually the draft of national strategy on hydrogen. It has an action plan and also some pilot projects of national interest which will be presented. So I leave the floor to Giampiero Celata. It's up to you. Thank you, Giampiero.
Thank you very much, Luca, and I wish also to thank our organizer for giving the National Energy Technology Cluster the opportunity to present its activities and role in the field of energy in Italy, and specifically on hydrogen. The Energy Technology Cluster in Italy is one of the 12 existing national technology clusters. 8 of them, you can read on the slide, have been launched in 2012. And the Energy Technology Cluster was launched with the call in 2016. And it was approved in the middle of 2019. And is still in the startup phase, also mainly due to pandemic in the last year. The technology clusters are public-private partnerships which operates on the national territory for industrial research, training and technology transfer, with the aim of coordinating the link between public research and industry. The task of the cluster is therefore, at least for energy cluster, combine the demand for innovation in the industrial sector with the scientific and technical outcome provided by the public research of the country to support the energy transition, and therefore to match the achievement of the targets set by the European Union and the set plan, and at national level by the National Integrated Plan for Energy and Climate, through the research funding program like Horizon Europe and national program like Recovery Fund, Mission Innovation, and other programs. You can read the founders of the clusters, 3 public research organizations, among which Enea, which is coordinating the cluster, 4 main industries, and academy, which is represented by a consortium of electric research universities. At the moment, we have 74 associates subdivided in 14 territorial bodies, 10 large industries, and 50 between the universities and public research organization. I would like to stress the importance of territorial bodies. First, because regional activities, as already outlined by Rosanna and Laura in the earlier presentation, is quite important, but because many of them represent a large number of SME in Italy inside the cluster. The cluster is also a reference for institutional bodies as well as for regional and national administration. At the moment of the proposal, each national cluster was specifically requested to include 2 pilot projects which are related to industrial research. For the energy theme, the specific strategic lines were systems for the production and distribution of sustainable and low carbon energy. And the second line was the concept of the smart grid. The 2 pilot projects should contain experimental industrial research activities suitable to enhance the link between industrial research and basic research. And the pilot project should demonstrate the ability to combine the world of research with the world of business. The 2 projects saw the participation of the 8 founders of the clusters I mentioned earlier. So this is briefly the 2 projects. One was related to the study and development of advanced solutions in the concentrating solar power sector, and specifically hybridization and integration with other energy sources. The other one was focused in the development of new models for the optimal management in emergency condition of the national transmission grid. This second project was over a few weeks ago, and we have a specific event on the results of this project. So the activities of the cluster, as anticipated by Luca, are included in a 3-year action plan, which has been presented in the middle of 2019 to the Italian Ministry of Research. And 5 priority technology areas have been identified: smart networks and micro networks, energy storage, smart grid, energy efficiency and renewable energy sources, and smart energy. About 20 technology roadmaps between 3 and 5 in each area have been identified. I have just outlined in the selection of the list those technology roadmaps where hydrogen was somewhat envisaged. Now we are working on the update of the 3-year action plan, and we are supposed to submit to the Italian Ministry for Research by the end of June the update of the plan. And more emphasis in this update is given. We are just working on that to hydrogen, as well as deeper insight to carbon capture use and storage, especially for what concerns blue hydrogen production, energy network integration, and local energy communities. The input for the update of the action plan, besides the contribution of the associated in the consultation we had in January and February, will come from national programs and strategies like the National Hydrogen Strategy, the Recovery Fund, National Program for Research, the Integrated National Plan for Energy and Climate, Mission Innovation, and IPCI, the important projects of common European interest. So the National Hydrogen Strategy is in course of approval at the Italian Ministry for Economic Development, and aims at the penetration of the hydrogen carrier at 2% by 2030, with application to heavy transport, hard-to-abate industries such as chemical, refinery, steel, mixing in the gas network, and at 20% by 2050, adding storage and electricity production and residential. Envisaging the creation of a hydrogen valley to run an integrated system research for the whole value chain. And the energy cluster contributed to the public consultation launched by the Italian Ministry for Economic Development last December, giving the voice to the cluster associates. Recovery Fund is in course of finalization, as we already heard in the previous presentation for Belgium. And among the 6 missions in which the Recovery Fund is built, One, which is mission 2, is devoted to green revolution and ecological transition, and inside which hydrogen is one of the 4 components, along with renewable energy and sustainable mobility. This is strictly related to the national strategy for hydrogen and directly allocates 2 billion euro to hydrogen, besides other funds allocated in sustainable local transportation. So a lot of money, all in all, to develop a lot of research and industrial development in this field. The last February, the cluster contributed with a written statement to the Senate, which are reading the plan. Mission Innovation is another important program, as you may know, is a global initiative which is working to accelerate clean energy innovation and has been launched in 2015 during the COP21, asking members to doubling the public funds in energy research. One of the 8 challenges which has been identified in the program is renewable and clean energy, with the objective to accelerate the development of a global hydrogen market by identifying and overcoming key technology barriers to the production, distribution, storage, and use of hydrogen at gigawatt scale, which are not very few, as we know. The Italian Ministry for Economic Development is defining with the Enea, which is the National Agency for Energy, New Technologies, and Sustainable Economic Development, an agreement for 3 projects related to hydrogen, smart grids, and materials for energy, included materials for hydrogen, for an initial amount of about 36 million euro, along with the participation of other public research organizations in Italy. The first 2 players, RSE and CNR, being associated with the energy cluster besides Enea. Specifically, the hydrogen project envisages the realization of a hydrogen valley in the Enea center of Casaccia, which is about 25 kilometers north of Rome. A hydrogen valley is envisaged like a multifunctional comprehensive hub where all the potential of hydrogen to accelerate research and innovation and make high-tech infrastructure available to bridge the gap between the lab and industry will be explored. This will be the first large-scale demonstrator of the actual feasibility of a hydrogen-based green economy. IPCEI is another important source of input for the cluster. As you may know, it has been already said about that. It is an old instrument of recent application that aggregates several industries in a framework of common Europe interest, supporting their investment in new products regarding research, development, and innovation, and in pre-commercialization of the industry, the hydrogen value chain. The National Energy Technology Cluster is mainly devoted to technology transfer to industry, so a special attention is paid to the IPCEI on hydrogen, which called for expression of interest on behalf of national industry and to incremental innovation. A total of 142 proposals have been presented, and what you can read in this slide has been discussed right yesterday morning, where the outcome of the reading of the 142 proposal has been presented at the Italian Ministry for Economic Development. 4 different work streams regarding the hydrogen value chains with sufficient level of readiness have been tentatively identified as technologies for production, logistics, utilization, and research and development and validation. It is interesting to see that in production, electrolysis requires for large innovation, especially in the flexibility and size of electrolyzer. Reforming is still important because the green hydrogen production is strictly related with the challenge to further increase the penetration of renewable energy source in the electricity production, which is already challenging to reach the objectives fixed by the European Union for 2030 and 2050. So reforming, steam methane reforming is still important, and therefore coupling of the carbon capture in this technology is relevant to at least produce blue hydrogen, at least in the middle term. It's definitely important, the logistics, transportation and distribution, transformation and storage of hydrogen. Also, the use of hydrogen is quite important in mobility, industry, and also the research and development, like hydrogen valleys, as I already mentioned in the Mission Innovation Program, residential and waste processing aspects. I have learned yesterday that alignment of the Italian proposals in the EPCI on hydrogen is quite good with the French IPCI, and these two countries are probably the most advanced in the development of the IPCI among the member states in Europe. It is envisaged that the first IPCI program on hydrogen should start early in 2022, and that probably even 2 or even 3 IPCI on hydrogen should be launched. We know that at least on batteries, 2 IPCI have been launched. So the role of the National Energy Technology Cluster is provide support to the associates which are involved in the hydrogen value chain, this specific topic, with specific insight into all issues relating to the energy sector, coordinate the actions with other associations, industry, research, events, and facilitates networking in that, like public consultation, auditions, and thematic tables. And this is the end of my presentation. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you also, Giampiero, for this presentation. You outlined which are the objectives of penetration of hydrogen in the different sectors which are in the Italian strategy. You also mentioned a couple of fields of action where hydrogen technologies can for sure play a role. One is carbon capture, and another one is local energy communities. Some relevant topics actually on the table. And you also mentioned at the end of the presentation a couple of initiatives in which Italy is active. One are the hydrogen valleys, which were mentioned also in other presentations, and another one is this important project of common European interest, EPCI, which you mentioned at the end of the presentation, which I think are already very, very interesting for the future development of technologies at Italian level, but not only. So thank you for your presentation, for the contents you outlined. So we have closed with our presentations. We are on time. I share again, and as I said, the slide with the link where you can go for sorry. Okay. This is you can find here the link to the B2B platform for the next part of the the morning. We will have a virtual coffee break as the virtual exchanges. Unfortunately, we cannot offer you a coffee as we would like to do, waiting for better times. But take your break. I would like to thank Julia from Environment Park for the great support offered for the organization of these webinars. Yeah, you can see.
Thank you, Luca. Thank you to all the partners and the speakers as well.
And I thank you also the Smart Energy partners for their support in the organizations of the virtual exchanges and for the involvement of their members in all these webinar sessions. And of course, I thank all the speakers for today's presentation, for being here with us. So now take your break and see you later at from 11:30 on the Flux 50 network platform for the B2B session. I will leave the slide on the screen so that you can have the link in front of you. Thank you very much for your participation and see you soon.